Anna, Elsa, Sven, Samantha. I don't even know it's Samantha.
Olaf, did Elsa build you?
Yeah, why?
Do you know where she is?
Yeah, why?
Do you think you could show us the way?
Yeah, why?
How does this work?
Ow! Stop it, Sven. Try and focus here. Yeah, why?
I'll tell you why. We need Elsa to bring back Summer.
Summer? Oh, I don't know why, but I've always loved the idea of summer and sun and all things hot.
Really?
Story time about when I stuffed my face with edibles before dinner with my wife's parents. Recently, I traveled to Denver, Colorado with my wife and her parents. As a resident of a non-legalized state and as someone who is too much of a pussy to regularly buy illegal drugs, the thing I was looking forward to most was the chance to buy fancy legal tree. What could possibly go wrong? So the first thing I do upon arriving, after successfully ditching the in-laws, is drag my wife to a nearby dispensary for a shopping spree. And oh my god, it was just like in my dreams. Tons of different options in neat little sample jars and a team of helpful stoners walking me through the various strains. Are you looking for a mellow body high? Or do you want something that gives you a bit more pep and energy? Or are you just hoping for something light to take the stress off? Yes, yes, and yes, I replied eagerly, like a fat kid in a candy store, and request an 1/8 ounce of about 7 different options. In hindsight, if I learned anything from this experience, it is that my math and science teachers never taught me basic information, like what's an ounce, or how much tree can a person consume in a single weekend. Sure, I can tell you when 2 speeding trains leaving separate stations will collide or recite Avogadro's number, but it turns out that none of that information is particularly relevant in getting high in a responsible and efficient manner. At this dispensary, I also learned that you can't actually smoke in public places, including the hotel that my wife and I were staying at. As a result, before leaving, I begged my wife to buy some edibles that I could munch on until we found a place to properly get lit. After expressing shock as to the absurd volume of drugs that we were buying, unlike me, she's the product of private school and understands the imperial measurement system. She relents, and we walk out of the store with what felt like a dump truck of weed, plus a small package of seemingly innocuous ginger snap cookies. When we finally get back to the hotel room, I tear those bad boys open, only to find about a dozen tiny cookies roughly the size of a quarter. What the F, Denver? Seeing the skepticism and hunger in my eyes, my wife warns me that I should go easy and look at the back of the package first before trying one. Dose size, 1/2 of a cookie. I read silently as I start taking microbites from the edges like a giant chinchilla gnawing on a sunflower seed. But what kind of a savage only eats half of a cookie? So a second later, I covertly pop the remainder into my mouth. And then I quickly stuff another 2 cookies in my mouth for good measure the minute my wife turns her back. We may not have legal tree back home, but I routinely devour an entire package of Milanos in one sitting without breaking a sweat. Your move, tiny ginger snaps. About 30 minutes later, we're in the backseat of a parent's rental car on the way to dinner. And that's when things start to go tits up. My stomach growls, loudly and angrily. My wife looks at me with inquisitive eyes that seem to say, diarrhea, but I merely clutch my tummy and mumble something about altitude sickness. You didn't eat the whole cookie, did you? She asks, 10% in genuine concern and 90% seething in irritation. Of course not, I respond, avoiding eye contact for the remainder of the car ride. A few minutes later, we're climbing out of her parents' rental car and heading into some trendy farm-to-table restaurant. I don't remember how I made it to my seat, and I don't remember even looking at the menu, but I do remember the concerned look on the waiter's face as he asked me if I was doing all right. Keep it together, man, I say to myself. But my wife's sudden groan suggests that I may have also said that to the waiter. Things are going downhill fast. The waiter nods sympathetically, takes our orders, and then heads to the next table. The moment he walks away, my wife is staring daggers at me. I start to worry that the jig is up. You are sweating from your entire face, she says, both with pity and disgust. Not quite knowing what to do, I reach for my napkin and proceed to blot my cheeks, nose, neck, chin, and forehead. Things only go downhill from here when my wife's mom looks at me with concern and asks if I'm alright. I'm a stay-at-home mom and my husband works full-time. We have 3 kids and one of them is 2 years old. My husband helps a lot with the kids. He's a committed dad but is absolutely against babysitters due to an awful incident with a babysitter that was the reason his younger male cousin James got disabled years ago. I don't go out much since I have to take the kids with me and not every place is suitable for kids. We received an invitation from our brothers, who's been my husband's best friend since college, wedding, which we later discovered was child-free. My brother lives states away, so the entire trip will take 4 days, as well as my brother's in-laws' weekend dinner party. I told my husband that I want to go since it's been a while since I went to a wedding, and this one is special, and suggested that we get a trusted friend as a babysitter. He asked if I was serious to consider leaving our 2-year-old with a babysitter, and suggested that I do what I normally do and stay home with the kids while he goes to the wedding. I refused and said I have as much right to attend as him since we were both invited. He said it wasn't his fault that my brother wants a child-free wedding, and I should do this for the kids and sacrifice for their sake. I still refused and said it was unfair, and since he's the parent too, then he should stay also for the kids. He looked at me and said, "That's my best friend's wedding you're asking me to skip for Christ's sake. Are you kidding me?" Then said I was being petty for suggesting this and I was basically choosing to go to a party over keeping our kids safe. He asked me to consider this a business trip, what I would do. Go with him and leave the kids? I said I understand his paranoia of babysitters, but really, all my friends have sitters and at times they're really needed. He said I ought to know better than what my friends tell me, and this wasn't even up for discussion. When I kept arguing, he called me selfish and said he won't let me ruin this relationship with his friend because I was being spiteful for not being able to attend and that my brother will understand my situation. He keeps asking who's more important, a wedding party or my kids, and said I was being unreasonable for making my attendance a hill to die on. Am I the asshole for refusing to stay home with the kids while my husband attends my brother's wedding? It was 1978 when a young girl named Mary Vincent ran away from home. Her parents were getting divorced, but she loved to dance and she wanted to pursue her career in LA as a dancer. So she's hitchhiking and holding a sign that says heading south, and hitchhiking at this time was pretty normal. Everyone would do it when a man named Lawrence Singleton picks her up. This man was much older and gave off grandpa vibes, and Mary felt pretty comfortable with him, so she went ahead and took a nap. When she woke up, she realized that they were going the wrong way and corrected him, but he just made excuses and kept going. When Singleton stops for a bathroom break, Mary realizes she might have to make a getaway, but as soon as she leaves the car, everything goes black. Singleton had whacked Mary over the head with a sledgehammer. When she wakes up, she realizes that she's tied up and in the back of his van. Over the next night, he repeatedly assaults her. By the next morning, Mary is begging to be set free. That's when he says, "You want to be set free? I'll set you free." Then he grabs his axe and does the unthinkable. After Singleton tells Mary he's going to set her free, he goes up to her and uses his axe to chop off both of her forearms. Then he takes her body and throws it over a 30-foot cliff, leaving her for dead as he drives away. As Mary slips in and out of consciousness, she thinks about Singleton's future victims. She finds the will to survive and climbs the mountain without her arms. She's wandering without any clothes and holding her arms up to prevent further bleeding when a car comes by. They rush her to the hospital and by a miracle, she survives. Singleton is then caught and arrested. Mary then testifies against him in court, telling everyone the unspeakable things that he did to her. Due to the leniency of the laws back then, he only got 14 years. Then he only served 8 and got out for good behavior. 9 years later, he killed another woman named Roxanne Hayes by stabbing her to death. Vincent showed up once again to testify against him, and this time he got the death penalty. However, he passed away in 2001 from cancer. Mary became an artist, had a family, and went on to share her story with others. This is why you should choose your friends wisely. I work at a hotel, and around 3 p.m. this guest came to check into her prepaid reservation. Despite it being prepaid, we have a $300 security deposit that's mandatory. Her card was declining for the deposit, so we couldn't check her in. She left around 4 p.m. and came back at 11 p.m. with her friend. Her friend spent $100 on an Uber to come to our hotel and put his card down for the deposit so that she could check in. Then he had to Uber back and spend another $100. The next morning, she brought me down a piece of paper filled top to bottom with her demands. She wanted her entire stay comped, additional nights comped in the future, and she wanted free room service. Her reasoning? We didn't let her check in due to her card being declined. We had a back and forth conversation about how I couldn't give her any of those things because her card declined. She kept saying things like, "So you're basically blaming me for everything?" and how she was a movie producer from London who was traveling, which is why her card declined. When she realized that I wasn't budging, she left the front desk. Luckily, that day was her checkout date, so we wouldn't have to deal with her for much longer. Or so I thought. She called a little later and asked for a late checkout. I told her I couldn't offer that to her because every room was booked up. She got mad and hung up on me. Around 11 a.m., security informed me that a guest was outside bothering the other guest. Part 2, why you should choose your friends wisely. While I'm walking over, a few hotel guests tell me that a crazy lady is bothering them. As I walk up to her, she's sitting with 2 random guests. I asked the gentleman if they're okay. They said, it's fine, we're okay. Which is when the lady tells me, "The only person bothering them is you." I ignore her and double check with the other guests who confirm that they're okay. That's when she says, "Bye, you can go now." To which I replied, "Remember, checkout is at 12. Oh, and if another guest complains about you bothering them, you'll be kicked out of the pool." Eventually, 12 p.m. checkout time hits. I send security to her room first as part of the do-outs. They inform me that her bags are all over the room, but she's not there. We smell cigarettes in her room, and after an inspection, find out that she's been extensively smoking in the room. That's a $500 fee. I authorize the $500 on her friend's card since it's the only one that we have on file. 1 p.m. hits, then 2, and finally she arrives at 6 p.m. I post a $300 checkout fee to her room as well, along with the resort fee totaling $850. When she came back, we told her we couldn't release her things until the cardholder signs authorization for the charges. This is when she throws a huge tantrum and leaves. However, it doesn't end there. Part 3, why you should choose your friends wisely. The next day, I get a call from the crazy lady's friend asking why he's being charged $850. I tell him everything and he's in shock. He said that she's having a midlife crisis right now and her mental state isn't normal at the moment. He then said the $850 charge is outrageous, followed by not knowing what he signed up for when he put his card down. I told him that putting his card down for her was essentially him taking responsibility for her reservation. I explained that I feel bad about it, but charging his card wasn't my decision. I also said that since we couldn't release her items to her bags are still in the room. Also, that the card on file will continue to be charged for each day the bags remain in the room. We'll only move the bags out of the room once we get an authorization form signed for the charges. He said he'd gladly pay the $350 for the late checkout, but the $500 smoking fee was too much. He threatened to open a dispute with his bank if he's charged for the full $850. I spoke to my general manager, and the most we could do was offer him 50% off the smoking fee. I also let him know that if he tried to dispute the charges, the hotel would pursue payment in court. He ended up accepting and signing for the charges. We took their bags out of the room, and the crazy lady came to pick them up at 3 in the morning. Overall, I just felt really bad for her friend.